It's Monday, August 28th. I'm Geoff Schwartz alongside Matt for this Geoff Schwartz is Smart. And you are back on Twitter and on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us. Matt, we have done it. The NFL preseason is done. There are cuts happening as we talk. There'll be cuts tomorrow. Unfortunately, the rosters are trimmed down to 53. We have a full slate of college football coming up this weekend. We'll get back to all that in a few minutes. Buddy, how do you manage the preseason? Did you make it out okay?
Yeah, I didn't place any bets because I made a whole impassioned rant on this very podcast that you shouldn't bet the preseason. I did have a conviction. I will say that I did think that Washington would beat the Ravens on the to end their streak. I really did have a feeling about that and did not bet it, but that's good. Restraints is an asset. Scarcity is an asset. It's good to save your bullets. I have a lot of you and I talked about it for the last month. All of our preseason futures put a lot down on that. So feeling good, feeling fresh, feeling unscathed, baby. I'm ready. I'm ready to just dive in the pool. No wounds.
I gave out 10 picks for Fox Sports in the preseason, including the Hall of Fame game. I went 8-2 and lost one of those games by half a point. So that just means we're going 0-5, buddy, in week one. However, I love our week one lines.
I don't know, man. This is maybe this podcast doesn't just have a clever name. Maybe you actually do know what you're talking about.
Pittsburgh +3, baby. Let's do it week one. Also, just pay attention to some college football stuff I give out throughout these shows. I think I gave out at the end of last show Hawaii +7 against Stanford, and it's now like 4.5 or 4. So I do know what I'm talking about every now and then, guys. So especially in the Pac-12 conference. But let's kind of get to some big picture topics as we head into the NFL regular season cut day, as I mentioned, happening today, a little bit tomorrow. They trimmed the rosters from 90 to 53. Now, remember, guys, the roster's not done. This is the worst part about cut day, by far, is that they cut everyone down to 53. Then you get a list of all the free agents you can now claim, and you claim some free agents, and then players who think they made the team get cut again. I've seen it happen many times. The 52nd guy, the 53rd guy, you don't get told as a player where you're in the pecking order, but guys think they've made it. They call their parents, hey, I made the football team. And then all of a sudden they're released when more waiver claims happen. So we're going to see kind of this influx the next couple of days of roster movements, of trades, of things like that. So if your favorite team, if you think they're done, they're really not. But we're going to get a good picture of where these teams stand with some competitions. We're seeing today some kickers get released, a weird amount of offensive line trades, teams looking for depth. But Matt, my point from the preseason after watching 3 weeks of this is that we cannot take away much in the preseason anymore. And I think that the takes are hot about, the preseason never matters. And it does matter, right? I've talked about this before. It does. There are things that you want to see happen. You want to see the good be good. You want to see if it's bad, second and third string, till they're going to play worse. But we've never had a year where we haven't matched up ones versus ones, twos versus twos, and threes versus threes quite like this year. We had teams ones versus twos and threes. Pittsburgh was playing Atlanta in the third preseason game with their one offensive line. I looked up the players on the Falcons defense, Matt. They were like undrafted rookie free agents, third string linebackers playing against Pittsburgh's number one offensive line. Like Pittsburgh's going to dominate
like
that.
Starting defense.
Yes. We've never had a disparity before where, the Cleveland Browns against the Chiefs, they played their first offense for 4 or 5 series against the Chiefs backups. Now, again, it should look good if you're the Steelers offense or the Browns offense, but it used to be more uniform. Ones played ones, twos played twos. Every now and then you get ones versus twos or twos versus ones. This year's all over the place. We made fun of the Bears and Colts for not playing Fields and Richardson in game 2. All of a sudden, in game 3, they're playing their guys while the other teams are sitting out. So to me, I don't think there's much to take away from this preseason, Matt. Like we used to get good film on ones versus ones and this guy versus this guy. Doesn't happen anymore. And I kind of miss the days when you could watch these games and really see where teams could be after the preseason.
Who does that disadvantage the most? Is that a coach? Does that affect coaches? Does that affect the players needing a few weeks to get sort of prepared? Like, how does this spill into the regular season?
I said this last year, and I do feel pretty comfortable in saying that I think that the offensive lines that play together in the preseason end up playing better in the regular season to start off, at least. A lot of teams just didn't play some offensive linemen, which I do not understand. But I did think that the coaches in general played their starters more than I feel like they did this year. It just was random times, right? It's hard to take away much. Again, like we used to say, if you play ones versus ones, I get it. It's the preseason, but that's a good tell, right? You're ones versus ones. You're seeing your one wide receiver against the one corner, your one left tackle against the one defensive end. You can see guys work through things, but you can't do that anymore. Again, you have to take it for what it is. Let's see his offensive line. They look good, but they're playing guys that aren't going to make the Falcons team. In previous years, that was ones versus ones. So I'm not sure it benefits anyone. Just for us, as we evaluate these teams, I can't look at the preseason and say, well, I like this team more or less now. There's certain players I think I like after preseason, seeing the jump they've made. But like teams, I feel no different about any team, Matt, after the 3 preseason games.
Well, one thing that I think really is interesting about this is the rookie quarterbacks, because I don't recall a year, especially think about last year, where Kenny Pickett, it took him all season to get that starting job in Pittsburgh, but all these rookie quarterbacks are starting week 1. Stroud is starting, Richardson's starting, Bryce Young is starting. It seems like this year there was just no thought of like, well, of course the rookies are going to start and the quarterbacks are going to start week 1. Without the preseason, you'd think they'd be more disadvantaged, right? Like that seems, it can't all be ownership pressure when it's all of these different teams. Like I know people think that might be the case in Indy and maybe another, but I'm curious what you think, what the effects are of that.
Well, the problem is the backups on those teams stink. Like there's no reason to play those guys, right?
Right.
And so you want to get the young guys acclimated as soon as possible. But yeah, the lack of reps, I just don't get why Anthony Richardson did not play in all 3 games. It makes no sense to have a rookie quarterback with limited reps of Florida not get all the reps possible in the preseason. I get he's not going to get hurt. He's 6'5", 250. Like, come on.
Right.
You need to give him the most reps possible. I think Bryce Young, I think he played the most. Stroud actually looked decently well, too, against the Saints on Monday night. But again, the Saints didn't play anyone, right? So, to me, my opinion about these guys has not changed until I see them play right in the game. They made some good throws, all of them. They made some bad throws. The problem with Bryce Young, did you watch any Panthers football in this preseason by any chance?
Can't say I did. I've seen his highlights, and I saw his touchdown in the last game. Like I've seen him play.
He is smaller than I thought he'd be on the field. Like, Matt, it really worries me. Like when I see these defensive linemen run after him, I'm like, please go down. Please. He looks very small, which we knew anyways. And I'm terrified, and maybe this is one opinion I do have from the preseason. Like I'm terrified to watch him get hit. It's not going to go well. Like there's a reason why, they say they want a bigger body style, right? Because you have bigger shoulders, bigger legs, bigger hips. Like when you fall, that 300 pounds is not falling on a 185-pound frame. It's falling on someone who's 205, 215, 210. And I worry about him. But my opinion on these quarterbacks, I thought Stroud was pretty accurate. He looked like he did at Ohio State. He made some really good throws. Richardson had a couple throws. You're like, wow, okay, I can see that. Bryce Young, I mean, it doesn't change any of my opinions until they play actual regular season games.
Yeah, it's true on Bryce Young. Like seeing him out there is extremely striking. And people have said this, but if he is going to succeed, it will be a historic outlier. Like no one has ever been this size and been, at least in the modern NFL, and been a prolific quarterback. So we're rooting for him. You live in Charlotte, you're definitely rooting for him. But yeah, it's a tall uphill battle for him. Yeah. Tall uphill, pun not intended. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Week 1, I feel like it might be a good chance. I haven't really looked at too many of the lines yet, but we might be getting a bargain with some of these teams with these rookie quarterbacks without a real preseason, right? Like I wonder if we should maybe think about an edge there. Same, by the way, with rookie coaches. Like I feel like in the past, you and I specifically, I remember one year we bet some unders where there was a game where there were like 2 new offensive coordinators or something like that. But like a rookie quarterback, a rookie offensive coordinator without a bunch of preseason reps, especially that third game where everyone used to sort of use that as their dress rehearsal. Now it doesn't really even feel like there is that. So maybe we should take a look at that. Like maybe it's, Panthers, Falcons under 40 might be a way to do something like that in week 1.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we did last year. I think it was a good way to look at it, right? Is you take new coordinators and new spots and you bet the under. We'll look at that as we move forward because obviously we're going to have next week a gambling show. We're going to give our 5 favorite wagers as we've done each season. We're going to finish 41-41 because that's what we do every year. We're going to be better this season.
We're not bringing any any baggage into the new season.
Sorry, 45 and 45. We have 90 games this year to go over.
We are absolutely not going to go 500 this year. We are going to do better than 500, and we're going to be a winning podcast. We're going to set our intention today. That has to happen.
I love it. I'm with you there. The one I have one other preseason take that I think it's tough because I just mentioned the Steelers didn't play anybody and didn't play starters. They played the Bills starters, I think, for a little bit. I'm very happy we're on the Steelers, Matt. Like I feel that's like the most happy I am about a take that we gave this preseason is being high on the Steelers. I think Kenny Pickett's going to make that jump from year 1 to year 2, that big jump we always see in starting quarterbacks, and become that kind of franchise type of player.
Wow.
They look good this year. Like the offensive line looked better. Pickens is really good. The offense seemed to function better. I know that, again, it's a preseason. Again, I get it. But like, I got that feeling last year from Pickett, and nothing changed watching this preseason to where I felt any different.
Dude, I think it's similar to the Commanders take I had. It's like Pittsburgh was 9-8 last year in a division with 2 playoff teams in the tougher conference and a brutal schedule. And Pickett was a rookie, and everything went wrong with Trubisky. Like, they're going to be good. They're a good team already, and I think betting on Mike Tomlin is one of my favorite things to do. I love that we were on this team. I love we took them over. And I love that we have them week 1 against Brock Purdy and the dysfunction that is the San Francisco 49ers. Did we talk about that last week? Do we want to maybe hit on that a bit?
The Trey Lance?
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember what day that was.
I know we didn't talk about that, but basically, obviously, Trey Lance is moving on to the Cowboys. But the Niners' process was bad. They tried to play him. Remember, he was going to be the starter last season. He got hurt. Like, they tried to give him reps. It just didn't happen. And then they just were happy to get rid of him because, look, you can't have a third-string quarterback who sucks up all the energy, right? Who people talk about, who people want to see play. Just can't have that. And obviously, Jerry Jones does not care, so he traded for Trey Lance because everyone's talking about every time Dak Prescott struggles, get Trey Lance in the game. But the Niners, they whiffed. They swung out. They swung out. They swung and missed. And the issues they're going to have is that Brock Purdy, I don't think, is a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl. We'll find out. But 2 is the depth, right? I mean, they lost a lot of first-round picks. Like, they lost players, and if you look at their roster, extremely top-heavy, like very, very talented team. But even Niners beat reporters will tell you that there's some depth issues. So the process of getting Trey Lance just was not good, right? I mean, if you're going to draft Mac Jones, great, but you can trade up and draft a project while your team is ready to win now. Bad process, man. Bad process. And the reason no one's really killing them for this is because they're still winning. If it was a bad process and they were 6-10 or 6-11 now, 5-12, you would knock them for this process, and they're not getting as much heat because they're still winning anyways.
100%. And, I'm not the first to go through the 2021 draft and think, if they had stayed at 12, they could have gotten Micah Parsons or Rashawn Slater or Mac Jones, of course. And it's so funny, like, people have done the Dak. It's a great topic, right? Will the Cowboys turn to Trey Lance if Dak falls apart, which they might. But Trey Lance, if he was drafted by any other team, no one would have cared about this, because when you look at the other, like Zach Wilson, when I picked before him, no one is clamoring for a Zach Wilson trade. I actually happen to think, like, Zach Wilson, there's something to save there. Like, he's shown some throws in the NFL. He was put in a really tough situation, and now Aaron Rodgers is there. And it's like, Zach Wilson just has no buzz. But Trey Lance is this totally unknown quantity who Kyle Shanahan liked for an offseason. And everyone's like, this guy's got to be awesome. He's going to be the next starter behind Dak. Like, no, he isn't. He hasn't showed us anything. Yeah. And if he was valuable, you have to think San Francisco would have figured out a way to keep him, or at least elevate him to beating Sam Darnold for the number 2 spot. Like, what are we talking about here? The stakes are low. So I just think that everyone needs to just rein their Trey Lance takes in. And we were all really excited about him. We all had really high hopes for him. But I think at the end of the day, like, this is a little bit of the come to Jesus with Kyle Shanahan that I keep talking about. It's like, this guy is mortal. Like, he's not going to be right 100% of the time. And if he deserves any credit, it's for folding when he knew that, this guy still had some value left, because maybe he's not anything. I'm rooting for him. It seemed, he's really fun to watch when he's doing his thing. But it doesn't seem. I don't think Dallas turned a 4th round pick into their next franchise quarterback.
No, and I think that there's, the thing with Lance that really sucks is that he's probably never going to get a chance, Matt, to ever prove himself in the NFL. It's just the way that the cycle works, right? I mean, he's going to have to find a home next year that's going to let him compete in camp, right? I mean, it's not going to be Dallas. They might keep him on the roster, but where's he going to go next year where he has the possibility of competing? He's just never going to be. He's never going to get the chance now to become a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Well, he did. That's the thing, is he had his chance, and yeah, he got injured, but then,
but he got one. But here's the thing. So here's, I'm glad you mentioned this because I just came to this, this thought. It's really apt here. So you mentioned, excuse me, got some stuff in my eye there. You mentioned that he got a chance. You got a chance. Okay, first round picks get 17 chances, right? Like I was 7th round pick. I got a chance, one chance. First round picks are supposed to get more chances, Matt. That's what makes this so different than other first round picks, is because a lot of teams say, yeah, we'll suck it up. We'll play the young kid. Hopefully he gets better. But because the Niners are in win now mode, they obviously don't have the opportunity to be that patient. Most first round picks get multiple picks and multiple tries, which is obviously why he got to trade to Dallas. But they typically will get 3, 4, 5 opportunities on a team, and he got one opportunity here.
It's so interesting. And I love that take, and it relates back to you so well done. I will say, though, I also think, to go back even a step further, if he went to Ohio State, if he went to Michigan, even just a D1 school, like if he went to BYU, maybe with Zach Wilson's case, he's not getting another chance because he did not play in college either. He took a year off, of course, but he also played for North Dakota State, and Carson Wentz isn't helping his case. There's a lot of mental shortcuts that decision makers have to make when they put this all into account. And I just have a feeling him being under recruited in high school is coming back to bite him here. You know what I mean? He's almost a victim of his own success in the draft, in how high he was drafted, because he would just be like a guy if we didn't know about him from going number 3. It's fascinating. This whole thing has never really happened before quite like this. Kind of reminds me of the Josh Rosen situation a few years back, where I really liked him coming out of college. I think you may have liked him too. I know our friend Blackjack.
I did, yeah.
Well, I feel like him and I were the chief shareholders of Josh Rosen stock, and then he fell apart, and he got one more chance, maybe 2, and that was it. And we're seeing it with Baker Mayfield right now. He's getting another chance, probably just because he was the number 1 pick and went to a big school. And I think that's how it goes. But this Trey Lance thing is fascinating. I'm glad we touched on it briefly.
Speaking about new faces and new places, buddy, let's get to topic number 2 here.
Yeah, I'm curious. This is that time of year where we sort of look around and go oh, right. New coaches that we haven't thought about in a few months, your guy, Eric Bieniemy, my guy now, Eric Bieniemy, DeMeco Ryans, Todd Monken. He's gotten a ton of buzz. That Ravens offense, everybody seems to be really high on the Ravens right now. Who is maybe the most fascinating person who's in a new spot that you're looking at as the season starts that you're most intrigued by?
Well, I think I really think there's a 3, right? And you mentioned a couple of them. Todd Monken is the OC in Baltimore, because this is now the opportunity for Baltimore and their offense to move away from what Greg Roman did, right? Everyone says, hey man, Greg Roman held this offense back, right? There's a possibility that Lamar Jackson, the passing game is just so much better, right? They have an opportunity to be so much better. Well, guess what? You have it now. You have an offense coordinator, Matt, that's going to let them throw the football. It's going to let Lamar Jackson play in a quote-unquote more pro-style offense. And so this is the opportunity everyone's been asking for in Baltimore. So Todd Monken be able to do this with, again, the weapons aren't great, but the offensive line should be better when all healthy. And look, it's up to Lamar, right? I mean, this is what you wanted. You wanted this offense, and you play a tough division. Remember, guys, it takes 8 to 10 weeks for an offense to sort of settle in. And so we might not get the best of Baltimore early on, or any of these teams as we're going to talk about, but the back half of the season is when you probably feel better about them. But I'm just fascinated, because if it doesn't work with Todd Monken, then that's not what Lamar can be in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, people are giving him a lot of credit. We've seen this before. Steve Sarkisian comes to mind for me as these college sort of these big brain college guys that come up, and they have varying success. Of course, I'm not going to say the word Steve Spurrier, but they come to mind for me personally as well. But it happens a lot where people project the success of the college thing onto the NFL, and we'll see. A lot of hype on the Ravens this year, and I think there's other teams in that division like Pittsburgh that look a lot better to me too. I mean, I think that the number one thing I'm intrigued by, I think, is Jordan Love, because Jordan Love, if the Packers were to have another good, stable quarterback after damn near 40 years of stability at that position, 35 years at this point, that would be talk about historical outlier. That'd be the first time ever that somebody would be this lucky at the quarterback position. We're seeing New England sort of deal with their ebbs and flows. We saw the Colts get close with Luck and Manning, but this just doesn't happen. So it would be unbelievable if the Packers were to nail this. But, people, I think, are just assuming the Packers are getting a lot of buzz. They're getting postseason buzz. They're getting sleeper in the NFC buzz, while the Detroit Lions are also in that division. And, we're on Minnesota, I think, a little bit to take care of business there. But I think Jordan Love is going to be the most interesting week one story for me.
So, absolutely. It's high on my list here. Here's the thing about Jordan Love, I feel like, Matt. If he was that good, the Packers would have moved on from Rodgers already, right? If he showed it almost like a Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith thing, right? Where they sat Patrick Mahomes and he was so good that he got rid of Alex Smith. Now, of course, Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers, two different players, so it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison. But you felt so good about that quarterback, you had to get rid of the other guy. And it feels unlikely that he will be as good, or obviously he's not going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers, but close enough to make this team a 12 or 13 win team, right? Their offensive line's good. They have a run game. The better weapons-ish. I like the tight ends. Obviously, Watson in year 2, Matt. But I want to see him play. I'm looking forward to watching him play. But I don't have high expectations. Do you? The win total 7.5. I think that's about right.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's a fair expectation for him. The counter to your argument would be what were they supposed to do? Trade the MVP, or trade the MVP the next year? You know what I mean? Rodgers was just so unbelievable those last 2 years, and then last year, he was dealing with the injury. So I don't know, but I think we'll know right away. And I do think that all of the sort of comments that Rodgers, not comments, the results of what Rodgers' year was last year without Devontae Adams there, without a tight end, really. Now, people are really gassing up Watson and Dobbs and this rookie tight ends. We'll see. They're a huge question mark, and the Packers, the Packers could be a blow it up team. If they're in week 3 or 4 and Aaron Jones is looking good, they're in their 0-4, they might ship him out of there. They could do the same with Bakhtiari, who could go to the Jets like Rodgers wants. So I mean, there's lots of ways that
he's not go. He's not going to the Jets. Maybe not. Maybe next year, but not during the season. All right, Matt. Every year there is a worst to first team. Not every year. It feels like every year in the NFL. Last year was Jacksonville, right? In 2021, they were 3-14. I believe that was the Urban Meyer season, and now they are. Now that last year they were, what were they? They're right here at 9-8 and won the division. We have 8 candidates for that: Jets, Broncos, Browns, Texans, Commanders, Cardinals, Bears, Falcons. We're going to do a draft. We're going to draft our favorites to be this team, worst to first. I'll let you go first. I'll go second, and we'll go 3, 4, 5. So who are you go? What? Yeah. What you didn't want to go first?
No, I'm. Well, I will go first. I think the obvious pick is, if we're calling the Falcons, there was a 3-way tie for last in the NFC South. So I thought maybe you are going to get a little tricky there. But I think that you have to take the Jets first, for obvious reasons. They have the best quarterback on this list. They have the best defense on this list. But they play in the toughest division, at least you'd think. But if they were the story of they went worst to first and Rodgers got them back to the playoffs and the Bills maybe took a step back, I think that would be the least surprising outcome of this list. But so I will take them first.
I'm with you here. That's the number one pick. That has to be the number one pick. and because they have the best quarterback, right? It's toughest division, but best quarterback. I'm going with, look, according to the NFL standings, the Falcons were the worst team in the AFC, the NFC South, just because of, I guess they were 7-10, but they had to finish up behind the Saints and Panthers for tiebreaker reasons. Only because, Matt, they're in a bad division. Like, they can easily make this jump with the Bucs in their division. Let's say the Panthers and Bryce Young have a rookie pain season, and Derek Carr, like, yeah, to me, it's Falcons, right? Is the next pick. I feel like in this situation, I mean, 7-10 to 9-8, you have to a 2-win improvement to win this division.
I agree. Very easy schedule. I thought about taking them first just to zag, but I couldn't pass on Rodgers. Ritter, again, he's not a new face, but a huge question there. Rest of that roster looks pretty good. Some underrated additions on defense. Like, I keep forgetting Calais Campbell went there. I keep forgetting Jesse Bates went there. Like, they kind of they have a really fun team, and they are going to have a really different style. So we'll see. I will third pick here. So I'm really between the Broncos, Browns, and Commanders.
Just do it. Just hometown it.
No, I'm not going to. I think I'm going to take the Browns because they're a team that I haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about because I hate them. But they have a brutal schedule. They play the NFC West, so they have San Francisco and I guess the rest of that division isn't too bad, but their division in the AFC North is killer. Start the season with Cincinnati. They have a week 5 bye. Like, I could see them just kind of like, if Watson were to return to form, they could be awesome. They have an unbelievable offensive line. They have possibly the best defensive player in the NFL on their defensive line. They have a great secondary. Kevin Stefanski, like, isn't the worst coach. He isn't the best coach. They hired Jim Schwartz, which is kind of an interesting hire. They're not a team that's gotten a lot of buzz, and that's probably a good thing. Like, I could see them having a bounce back, even if it means they'd have to get by 3, possible playoff teams. It is possible that they could go to first.
I'm with you. Again, quarterback. Again, I think this is a podcast that doesn't root for Deshaun Watson, but can play football, right? Like, it definitely makes sense they could do that. I'm gonna go with the Bears here.
Wow,
Matt. Yeah, and not because I think they're going to be great, but just looking at my kind of the divisions and the chance. So let's say Justin Fields improves, right? The offensive line gets better, they have more weapons, and he makes that jump. The Lions, to me, are a team that everyone's too high on. So I think we both agreed that, like, we took them no playoffs, right? That was one of our wagers. We just talked about the Packers and Jordan Love. The Vikings are going to be tough, but if the Vikings go 2-7 in one score games, not 9-0. The Bears are in this, right, Matt? Like, they're in the discussion to win the division late in the year if things break right for everybody.
It's a good case. I bet the Bears under. I am a huge seller in the Bears. I think they haven't improved enough at any of the positions where they really need it, except for DJ Moore, who I think lovingly is not the player that people think he is. They start the season Green Bay, Tampa's winnable, at KC, Denver, Washington, Minnesota. That's brutal. Not a Matt Eberflus guy, just out on the Bears, but good case. So in with the 7th option, the 5th option, I'll take the Commanders here. I've made that case at length on this show before. They had 8 wins last year. Interesting comments from Ron Rivera today. I don't know if you saw those about Sam Howell, where he said that if he had known what he was capable of, he said, "Fuck, if I would have known this, I would have played him sooner," while watching him play the Cowboys last week of the season, which is bizarre for about 10 different reasons. So I think Rivera was impressed with Sam Howell, and I think that Eric Bieniemy is a massive upgrade. So the only big problem here is the other 3 teams in the division that could all win it as well. So I'll take the Commanders with the 5th overall.
It's a pretty odd comment, right? Like, that isn't it your job to evaluate these guys in camp and during practice?
Yeah. Didn't you draft him? Like, wasn't
the report last year that Taylor Heineke had to beg for him to play the last game of the season?
Yeah, Taylor Heineke took himself out and said, "Put this guy in." Pretty strange. Ron Rivera's had a kind of goofy offseason, and I think without Snyder there, people are going to stop grading him on a curve. Shout out to the production, to Hank.
Yeah.
Lower third says commodes right now instead of commanders. I like that.
All right,
so are you
Matt,
going to have enough cognitive dissonance to take Denver, or what are you doing next?
Can I do something for the rest of our listeners right now and just can we punt on the last three teams? Broncos, Texans,
there's
Cardinals.
No chance the Cardinals, Texans, or Broncos are winning. Yeah.
No. So
Broncos
we'll just skip that.
The only reasonable one, but yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get to the last one here as we wrap up a shorter episode today as we get ready for the NFL regular season. Also college football, as I mentioned, starting up again in full this upcoming weekend. We did have college football this past weekend with some kind of little appetizer as Notre Dame steamrolled Navy, and then USC beat San Jose State 56-28. Takeaway from that game is USC's defense. I still don't like it. It's game one. I get it, but they have dudes now to play, and they still run really complicated and overly aggressive defensive schemes that don't allow their players to get the best out of what they can do. I just don't get it. But the main takeaway from USC remains that Caleb Williams, Matt, is an incredible football prospect. And he got hit way too much in this game for my liking. They got to find a way to get the ball out quicker sometimes. And I know they're having some offensive line. They started a true freshman left guard, and they're trying to find, ways to kind of patch up the offensive line to get into conference play, but got hit way too much. Nonetheless, the dude is incredible. He dropped a snap. The ball rolled backwards. He picked up and threw a 76-yard touchdown pass anyways. You cannot tackle this guy. Like, no one touches him the entire game. Even when there's guys that are in his face, he jukes and makes him miss. And he is the closest thing we've seen to really the last surefire prospect was Andrew Luck, right? Like, where everyone's like, yeah, this guy's going to be good. Caleb's is going to be good in the NFL. Is he Patrick Mahomes? I don't know, but he's an elite level talent. And that brings me to the Arizona Cardinals, who today announced that they are cutting Colt McCoy, and they're going to play either Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune at quarterback this season, Matt. And I could not be happier that a team is just saying, fuck it, we're tanking. Like, absolutely, 100%. I know Colt McCoy is not a world beater. I think he won 3 of those last 6 starts the last 2 years. Like, he can play some football. I look at he completed 70% of the passes over the last 2 years. He's manageable. He's good enough. Josh Dobbs is not good. Clayton Tune is not good. They're emptying the roster. Isaiah Simmons, gone, right? Like, they're getting rid of the entire roster. They're redoing it. And the way you take in this league, for the 100th time I've said this, is to have a bad roster and be bad at quarterback, Matt. And I love the blatant tanking for Caleb Williams that the Arizona Cardinals are doing.
It's fascinating, and love that the Commanders play them week 1. Good for our Commanders over ticket. Good for my personal sanity. Good for your survivor pools potentially. Great tease candidate. The Commandantes are favored by 7. That could be a really nice tease down. I was putting together a little tease in my head as we were doing this topic. Yeah, it's a tough one for it's like, hey, Raiders, like, maybe double check that Jimmy Garoppolo foot injury. Like, maybe just get a second opinion that says he can't play this season. Like, I agree. This guy, I mean, you said Andrew Luck. Like, to me, it was Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence, when he came out, he was the most can't miss. And I couldn't be higher on him this season. And look but like, say they're about the same. Look what he did after a disaster year 1. Trevor Lawrence has Jacksonville in the playoffs, and like, it looks like their division now for the next few years. So it's just the ultimate shortcut. And this guy looks, I mean, his highlights are ridiculous. Like, I've never seen anybody quite like him. It's like Mahomes, but he's got size, and he's got just like, yeah, he's awesome. He looks like a perfect fit for the future of the NFL. And the fallout here is Kyler, who like has this huge contract, is still like, I don't even know if they're going to be able to move him with his injury. He's not. They just reported they're not taking him off a PUP yet. Like, what are they going to do with him? Who's going to buy Kyler Murray at a discount next year and pay him all that money? So not really a discount.
Remember, I was on, I think it was on Carton Show like a couple months ago, and I made the comment that I don't think Kyler Murray will ever play for the Cardinals again. And people were like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, he's owed $35 million next season in 2024. His dead money cap hit would be $81 million in 2024. It's $29 million if they cut him after. I'm sorry. Post June 1st, the cap hits $48 million. They'd be $29 million in the red for cap savings, which obviously doesn't even matter for 2024 if they cut him. He's probably untradeable at that current contract, right? But here's the thing, though. With the rookie wage scale, you can sort of afford to get by for a little bit with two quarterbacks, essentially, right? Getting paid a good amount of money. And Caleb Williams, to me, Matt, is worth the headache of figuring it out, right? Like let's get Caleb Williams in our building. And if Murray sits, he sits for a year, and we get rid of him. Some team injures a quarterback in training camp. They want a new quarterback, but Caleb Williams is better than Kyler Murray. And remember, Cardinals have a new general manager, a new head coach with no ties, no allegiance to Kyler Murray. They didn't draft him. They didn't pay him. They do not care about keeping him around. They want their own quarterback. Caleb Williams, besides the playing the field, man, I've interviewed him a couple of times. I've seen him at media days. I've talked to people at USC. Great dude. Like, humble, down to earth, still has that confidence and cockiness that you need. That ego is a top flight quarterback, but kind of, again, the down to earth qualities about him. He's everything you want in a quarterback. And you cannot be hung up on Kyler Murray as the reason why you don't do this. You do it and you figure it out later.
That's a great point, and something to look forward to and maybe start to track. We can be early on this one. A lot of potential for quarterback movement next year. Someone brought this up with the Dak Prescott contract when the Trey Lance trade was made. The Cowboys have an out next year. If they're not liking where that's headed, they could get out of that contract.
They do. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is a free agent next year. Ryan Tannehill is a free agent next year, and they just drafted Levis, but we'll see. Jared Goff, there's an out. Russell Wilson, there's an out. And I believe I'm missing someone else. Did I say Jared Goff? Like, there's lots of teams that could potentially move around. Who knows what happens with Stafford? Garoppolo obviously is another one. That's a lot of quarterbacks. Like, every couple of years, it seems like there's like a quarterback earthquake and a whole like reshuffling of the deck. And we'll see. It's a great year to have the number one pick. There's going to be, and another quarterback, by the way, on your roster. Like, Kyler's probably getting a first round pick. You'd think, like, if the Vikings were to say we're done with Kirk Cousins, we got to the playoffs or whatever, but that's it. Again, they have like the 20th pick. Like, that's a pretty good deal for Kyler Murray, I would think, right now. So it's going to be fun next year. It's we'll see what happens, but very interesting. Love that they are just going full tank, and love that they're facing the Commanders week 1. Let's go.
I love it. Anything else in your mind? Any NFL college football in your mind?
Quickly, I wanted to talk about the Matthew Stafford thing. We were talking before air about the Rams, and how a lot of people, including me to some degree, are sort of saying like, hey, hold on, like, isn't this a team that could kind of turn it around as a not worse the first but close contender? He said today that he's having trouble relating, or his wife said, I think, that he's having trouble relating to his younger teammates. They're all calling him sir. He's sort of confused as to how he fits in with this younger group. A lot of sort of undrafted, we've mentioned on the show before, a lot of rookies. Did you ever see this where it went one way or the other, like with an Eli or somebody, one of these older quarterbacks? Or is this a sign of, hey, maybe like something's going on with the Rams that we should pay attention to here?
Well, I think this is something that, when I was with Eli Manning, it's not a problem, but we were a new offensive line for him. He had played with guys for so many years, and it takes time to form that bond. We were older, though. We weren't a bunch of young guys. The Rams offensive line, I mean, they just traded for Dotson from Pittsburgh, but it's a bunch of young dudes. Like, Cooper Kupp is older. That's it, right? Like, Aaron Donald, older. That's it. We read off the list of guys on defense. It absolutely is a tough thing. And if his wife is mentioning it on a podcast, then it must be a lot, because Matt's talking about it a lot then at home, right? I mean, like, he's talking about it a lot if she feels the need to mention it on a podcast. I think on our show, did you try to convince me the Rams are going to be good, or did I do that? Someone did that, right? On our last show, preview show?
I tried, but I didn't try that hard, because I don't totally believe it. I just think McVay deserves the benefit of the doubt that Shanahan gets.
The Rams are a great candidate to have the first overall pick, right? Like, Stafford gets beat up early in the season. and they lose a Cooper Kupp for half a season again, and that who is left? Who's making plays for them?
Yeah, if Kupp were to miss 3 games, I would take if Kupp misses any games, you have to take their under. Like Kupp is the offense, and he's going to get the same amount of targets he's gotten in years past, where it's just constant. You're right.
They're just young, man. They're just young.
Yeah. It's a real coaching challenge, and if Sean McVay, if anybody can do it, it's McVay. But I agree, they're a team that I wouldn't feel great if I were one of their fans. And but it's interesting that they could be a candidate to tank and potentially get Caleb Williams to stay home in Southern California. That'd be pretty interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but maybe they should be on that list.
Matt, you're going to have a time in your when you have kids. You're having your first child soon. When they just walk in your office while you're recording podcasts multiple times for no apparent reason to tell you that something arrived from Amazon on our front porch. My daughter just keeps walking in here, man. It is what it is. Like it's just something arrived at our porch, Matt, that I need to go look at.
She's not playing in that sweet new room she's got set up.
Oh yeah, they did come. Yeah, they did come home and look at that room. My wife. I don't know if your wife is like this, Matt. I'm sure some people listening have wives like this, or maybe the husband is like this. But
wife corner.
Well, my wife doesn't do well with downtime, and she treats downtime like time to rearrange the entire house. So yesterday we had nothing to do, and so she just decided to rearrange the entire house by herself. And we have 2 rooms now that look completely different than they did when I woke up Sunday morning. And I'm going to Eugene this weekend with the kids to take them to the Oregon football game. When I come back, the house is going to be different. She has promised there will be changes. I'm a little terrified of what the house is going to look like. And this is why she always says, I'm going to quit my job. I'm like, hun, you're going to destroy my house, our house, if you do this. Like, you cannot sit still. In one day, she redid 2 rooms. Like, it's going to be, it's a lot, Matt. There's a lot happening in my household at all times.
I love that story. Meredith is the best. 2 rooms in a day is prolific. That is a prolific level of output.
It is. My wife is very private, like on social media. There's no you never get to see much of it. I think her Instagram is public now. Who knows? But she doesn't post anything. Even like we go out to dinner the other night, we didn't post like we're out to dinner. We just like don't talk much about what we're doing personally. But when people meet her, she is a unique. There's one of one, man. There ain't no one like she is one. Oh,
I remember. Nothing. It had to be like 2 years ago, like maybe less, where we were on a phone or podcast or something, and you were like, hey, I just learned today, like Meredith doesn't follow me on Instagram. It was like weirdly recent. It was not like 6 years ago. It was like 1 year ago. It was
She's like, I'm tired of your crap on the internet. I'm unfollowing you. It just doesn't know.
Like you were like tagging her forever, and she never saw any of your stuff.
Yes, she's like, why don't you post stuff on Instagram anymore and tag me? And I go, I do. You don't follow me. The best part is like, she's one of those people that is so good at work, like so on the ball, so focused, that in her real life, it's just not the exact opposite. It's quite the dynamic to see her like in work mode and doing work, and then just like clicks it off and turns into the exact opposite at home. It's quite incredible. I admire that.
Well, I do too. She's a killer, and it's great for her. I have a question for my marriage corner here, yes. Which is, we've entered. So as the listeners may know, we're expecting our first baby boy in around Halloween. So Geoff will have to see if I'll maybe send some pics via text, or maybe you'll have to pick those weeks with Gabe when I'm out for a few weeks. But my question is that we're in the 3rd trimester now, and it's a very different trimester. Like 2nd trimester, you're flying. Everybody's feeling great. Like, it's still like it still feels very like far away, but also pretty manageable. Then 3rd trimester comes, and like, you've got a closet full of baby clothes like I do behind me. Like stuff starts to get more real, and my wife's getting very uncomfortable. Like it really, the body's really changing at this point. What can I do to be a good teammate at this phase? What's some good advice from? There's a lot of things I could be doing better, but there's a
No,
lot of I get a lot of suggestions, and I'd like to sort of focus my energy into anything that can make real progress.
Nothing. You just have to support. Like if she's like, "Get me an ice cream," you're like, "Yes, ma'am." Go get her ice cream. Like
done.
Just whatever makes her comfortable. Just do it. Like there's no the thing about the dad part about kind of the whole pregnancy and birth. Like there's nothing to do. Like even when the baby is born, Matt, if your wife or any wife is breastfeeding, like the baby cries, you just hand it back to the mom. Like it's nothing until the baby starts on a bottle. Like the dad's nothing to do. All you're there is to support your wife or your baby mama. It's your only job, whatever that entails for you or for anyone else. That's what you're there for. When the baby gets to 3 or 4 months, you start giving more bottles and whatnot, or maybe obviously everyone's plan's different. But like when my kids started having a bottle, then I became more involved with like everything, right? Because now I can give them the bottle and I can help them soothe them and I can do that. But like this time, just whatever she wants, you just, here you go, hon, whatever you need to do. And I have no parenting advice, by the way. I'm not one of those people who can give you any parenting advice. I have none. Just everyone's different. Raise your kid how you want to raise your kid. I just don't understand. Yeah, like what am I going to tell you? It's your kid. You're raising them how you want to raise them.
Well, I look forward to sharing my other lessons with the listeners over time. This is a nice safe space because we're positive that our wives are not listening or watching this.
Oh no, there's no chance. I like that you're going to experience this like in a different, because so like my kids are obviously 9 and 7. Gabe's kids are getting to like little toddler age, and you're going to have the baby, and you're gonna get the dad jokes. You're gonna understand. Like I might send you a pair of New Balances for your birthday, for the Air Monarchs for the birthing present. I'm gonna give you a birthing present. Have you done
push present for me?
Have you done that yet? A push present? Have you figured that out yet?
No. And as you were mentioning the like, just do whatever she wants. Like I'm way ahead of you there. That's just sort of how this relationship has worked from the beginning. So,
can I give you one?
Once, and she's just like, I'm going to get it. That's what's going to happen. I'm just going to buy that for myself.
So do you have clothes hanging up in the background? I think those are baby clothes, not your clothes.
Yes.
Correct. They're very small jackets. Very cute. They go through clothes like crazy, buddy. Don't buy your kids shoes till they can walk. Shoes are expensive for kids, and they don't they can't use them. We bought for my son, we bought like 20 pairs of shoes. He didn't wear a single one. It's not walking. We bought 0 for my daughter until she could walk. It's like, otherwise, like, why would you have them wear shoes?
Right, and then they're not walking
or crawling, or when they start crawling, maybe outside, you want them to wear shoes. But like when they're infants, don't put shoes on them. It's a waste of money. Save your money.
That's a great.
I gave some parenting advice there, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, we're dragging here a little bit too long. It's our last show before the season. We're going to button it up. Last question for you: are you excited to be in the Blue Duck Fantasy Football League? Talk to me about your excitement level and your strategy about facing off with me, Hank, Gabe, Ryan Shazier among the other participants in the league.
Let me see. What's the app What's the app we're using for this?
I think our dorky PA Daniel. Shout out Daniel.
Oh, Sleeper. Here we go. So I have to change my name. I think it's just like Geoff Schwartz's team. If you do this thing too late, I'm just gonna auto draft. That's basically. So you better not do the draft too late. Well, I'm on the East Coast.
We're planning this around you now. Consider that.
So let's see. So there's I know most of these people I think in here. Oh, Vic's in there. Great. Okay.
Yep. Vic, who's on the other line of this.
Hasbula, that's probably Hank's team, isn't it?
I think that might be Daniel's team.
Wait, Hank's team has two coaches?
Yeah, I think Hank is too afraid to manage a team by himself. So is Gabe's. Gabe is also afraid to manage a team by himself. I'll just have a baby in the middle of the season and still win this league. Don't worry about it.
I'm not big into fantasy, but I will have fun talking smack about luck. I really care. That's my favorite part of fantasy. I set my lineup. So to be fair, I do radio Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. That's typically when I set my lineup. I remember to set my lineup at that point. And so that's when I do it. So I hope to. I'm gonna draft some sleeper maybe. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I have no idea. I like to gamble. I feel like you can only gamble or do fantasy, not do both very well. Maybe you can.
I mean, I'm living proof, brother. I do them both poorly.
All right, everyone. We'll be back next week. I'll be in Eugene this weekend. College football is back. I'll give you my Pac-12 plays of the week on Friday, probably, even though 2 of the lines. The hard part about week 1, Matt, giving out picks, is that I have Hawaii +7, and that's now 4.5. I have an under I like that moved 3 points already. I always get caught in this dilemma week 1. Do I give out the lines that I have myself or give out the lines that I have on Friday?
You get credit for your smart ones. Anything
I feel like I
that's
do,
actionable
right?
for the listener. Yeah, we'll take whatever you've got.
Yeah.
Got any parting shots? Got one for me that I can just put in right now?
Well, allegedly? Like I said, so I think it's pretty reasonable to bet USC's team total over every week. I don't know if what it is for the Nevada game this weekend. That's one that hasn't been played yet, hasn't been posted yet. That one I feel comfortable doing. The game is, they're going to
51.5.
Yeah, that feels over. Yeah, I would take the over on that. Otherwise, as I mentioned, I have Stanford, Hawaii at +7. Like that's at was it 4 now? 3 dropped to 3.5 last night. It's 3.5 right now. I got +7. Like there is one other Pac-12 number that is kind of odd. Is Washington is coming off an 11-2 season. They're 10th in the country, and they're only favored at home by 14.5 over Boise State. I find that number to be really low. Like TCU's here by 20.5 over Colorado. I find that number just to be shockingly low. So yeah, that's
interesting.
It.
Well, maybe the Hawaii thing is a tease, and I'll tease USC down to 31.5.
You should. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. We'll be back, I think, 2 a week very soon here with some exciting new things in the future. All right, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next week. Take care, everybody.